Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod. I'm here to talk about Survivor Season 45, Episode 7, titled The Thorn in My Thumb. Last week on Survivor, we saw the survivors compete in the Earn the Merge challenge. At Tribal Council, Caleb's shot in the dark hit and sunk J Maya's chances at $1 million. Before I dive in, if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. I'm setting a goal of 200 subscribers by the end of the Survivor season. Also, I'm putting a link in the description of the video to the playlist where you can watch all of the recaps for this season that you may have missed. So let's dive in. They get back to camp after the Tribal Council and they celebrate getting to the merge, and Caleb is happy to be the first person to successfully be saved by the shot in the dark. Speaking of shots in the dark, Bruce takes a shot at Katurah, confronting her, wondering if she really wanted to vote for Caleb. Katurah is so pissed, and she's still pissed the next day in her confessional. She pulls him aside in the dark and asks him not to call her out in front of everyone. Katurah calls Bruce the thorn in her thumb, saying the thing that I don't know is a real phrase. Kendra also says Bruce is hard to work with. The next day, Katurah tells Caleb that Bruce was a big part of why Caleb got votes. Kelly and Kendra consider turning on Bruce. Kelly likes that Bruce is kind of a number for her. Emily tells us that she and Caleb are trauma bonded, but she's distancing herself from him and wants to get closer to Drew and Austin, her new friends. Austin reminds us that he now has an idol that's a real idol and he can use it until the final 5, which I totally misunderstood in my last update and said he only has 1 week to play it. So I apologize if that kept any of you up at night. On this day, Bruce is being especially annoying on the beach. Caleb says it's very clear that Bruce has only played Survivor for 14 hours on his season. Caleb asks Jake for advice, and Jake wants Caleb to be around for a long time and wants to help Bruce and Caleb to make up. Bruce tells us he can see himself in Caleb at 30, very manipulative, always smiling. What? Bruce, why were you very manipulative and always smiling at 30? Caleb calls his one-on-one conversation with Bruce one of the most frustrating conversations he's ever had in his life. Bruce's strategic advisor, Kelly, tells Bruce to basically stop calling Katurah out. Kelly tells us her main problem is dealing with Bruce. She calls him an anchor that she's been dragging around the whole game. Jake tells us that he sees the Bello-Reba war coming and wants the old Bellos to stick together and bring Caleb along. We get to the first individual immunity challenge of the season. Jeff shows them the new immunity necklace, and it's really nothing spectacular. Bring back the Pelican Idol. The immunity challenge is going to be a classic that makes me think of Ozzy and Parvati. They're hanging on a pole with divots in it as long as possible. They'll be split into 2 groups. Each group will be going to Tribal Council separately, so there will be 2 individual immunities, and the person who lasts the longest from both tribes will win a trip to the sanctuary for their tribe and the ability for their tribe to vote second. The stakes are really high to win this because the first person voted out won't make the jury. The groups are chosen by rocks, and the groups are red, Jake, Dee, Austin, Julie, Caleb, and Katurah, and blue, Bruce, Sifu, Kendra, Kelly, Emily, and Drew. The challenge starts. Emily is out quickly, followed by Julie, Kendra, Jake, Sifu, Bruce, surprisingly Austin, and Drew. I say surprisingly Austin because the second I saw this challenge, I felt like he would be really good at it. But Kelly wins individual immunity for blue, and they close up on Dee's toes wedged into the divot of the pole. Caleb falls next, and then Katurah, so Dee wins individual immunity for that team, and Kelly and Dee have a battle, and I've never seen anyone hang onto this challenge the way that Dee is at this point. Kelly eventually falls, and Dee wins the reward for the group. Kelly and Dee celebrate their immunity win. This double female immunity is the mental cleanse that I needed on this day. I wrote in my notes, the only way this gets better is if 2 men go home. So the red team is going to the sanctuary, and blue has to spend the day at the loser Lulu beach. Dee shouts out her toe, and they flash back yet again to that big toe in that divot. They go to the sanctuary for the 2nd week in a row where it's not catered by Applebee's. Karishma would be so disappointed. We get a lot of strategy from Jake. Jake wants to save Caleb, so he says that his target tonight is Julie. Jake is getting a lot of screen time this episode, so he's either the genius, the fool, or he's going home. Back at the loser Lulu camp, Bruce and Drew strategize against Sifu, but Drew worries that it'll be him instead of Sifu, and he says that he left his safety without power advantage back at camp, so he doesn't have it. I think it's so foolish at this point in the game to make the decision to leave your advantages back at camp. Bring that with you everywhere, especially knowing that people can go through your bags. Bruce tells Kelly that he feels like Kendra is plotting against him. Kelly wants to try to get Kendra and Bruce on the same page for the vote. At the other camp, Austin and Dee consider keeping Caleb to keep him around as a shield. Dee doesn't like this. She wants Caleb out. She says boy bye. Jake doesn't like that he feels like he's being told what to do by Dee. Jake goes to Caleb. Caleb tells Jake that they need to tell Katurah about Bruce's idol before Austin does, so that Katurah doesn't find out from someone else and turn on them. So Jake starts telling us his idea for a plan tonight, and we get a strange flash forward to Tribal Council. It's an awful jumping transition, so I blame the editors for this, but it made me feel like my TV was broken. And he explains that at Tribal, they're going to try to put 3 votes on Julie and 3 votes on Caleb, and then it would force them to go to Rocks and scare Austin into changing his vote. This really seems like a terrible plan, like going to Rocks to protect a player that you all just tried to vote out unanimously who wasn't on your original tribe. It's like putting yourself in a really risky situation for no reason. So Caleb talks to Katora and tells her basically that Bruce has an idol. So after receiving that information from Caleb, Katora seems pretty on board with voting with Caleb and Jake in this plan. After this though, Katora talks to Jake and asks Jake what the deal is with Bruce. Jake tells her about the idol hunt back at camp, so she realizes that everyone on her tribe was conspiring against her to find the idol and that they lied to her after finding it, so she's considering changing her vote. At the Lulu tribe, Sifu is visibly emotional. He feels like he could be voted out and he really wants to be on the jury. Kelly tells Kendra to reassure Bruce so that he doesn't play his idol. She says that Bruce is so difficult, but he's a great shield for them, and they settle on voting for Sifu. Kendra tells Drew to vote for Sifu, but Drew is not so sure that that's the best move for him, and he still wants Kendra to vote for Bruce, so they talk separately about flipping the script. Kendra tells Bruce that she's with him, and Bruce confesses to us, "Girlfriend, trust is earned, not given." Bruce tells Kelly he wants to play his idol, and Kelly tells us that working with Bruce is the worst part of her game. This episode really felt like a coming out moment for Kelly because she's getting a lot of Kim Spradlin-esque confessionals before this tribal. The Lulu Beach tribe goes to Tribal Council first. Jeff is loving everyone's misery at this tribal. They point out that there's 1 Lulu, 2 Rebas, and 3 Bellows. Sifu says that he knows he's a threat, and the Bellows could easily just say, "Sifu, you look great, but sayonara." So we get to the votes, and it seems like the Bellows say, "Sifu, you look great, but sayonara," because there's 1 vote for Bruce and 5 votes for Sifu, so Sifu is voted out and is the last pre-juror. So seems like Kelly was able to get Bruce not to play his idol, which is great for her game, gather everyone together into voting out Sifu, and Drew wasn't able to convince Kendra to switch the vote. And we have to say sayonara to Sifu here, who was overall a fun, pleasant character. I feel like he was cast mostly for the silliness and camp that he brought to the program, but for these kinds of players who are very silly and fun, I feel like he brought a lot of intelligence and he was pretty aware of what was going on in the game. I feel like the fact that he was being extremely silly and outrageous around camp, but there wasn't a lot of content of other survivors complaining about him. If they had the footage, I feel like they would have used it, so he was probably a very pleasant person to be around. He didn't really do anything significant to really affect the game. His footprints on the Survivor strategy this season are very light, but he did provide some of the more on purpose and accidental comedic moments of the season, with him playing the machete like an electric guitar, singing a weird song and pointing the machete at his other tribe mates, mimicking Salt Bae onto the piece of fish. These are things that I'll remember him for, but would I cast him for an early boot season? Hell no. I'm perfectly happy with seeing Sifu go here and never seeing him again. Now, the other tribe comes into tribal. Jake wants to make moves that will take him farther. Caleb says that he's been showing people transparency, and we get to the votes. No advantages are played. I fully expected and wanted them to go to Rocks here. The votes end up being Caleb, Julie, Caleb, Julie, Caleb, Caleb? So Katora ended up flipping on Caleb, and he becomes the first member of the jury, with Jake ending up announcing to Julie that he voted for her. I said earlier that Jake was either going to be the genius, the fool, or be voted out tonight, and he ends up being the fool. Caleb and Jake completely mismanaged Katora here. It kind of does go back to the Bruce's idol thing, because if Caleb and Katora really had a close relationship, he would have told her way earlier. So honestly, good for her for not playing in fear and for sticking up for herself. This move could totally backfire for Katora, but I feel like voting for Julie and pissing off the Rebas could really backfire for Jake. And we have to say goodbye to Caleb here, which really shocked me. My jaw dropped. Caleb definitely had a journey on this season, being really unlucky and being put on a tribe that just continued losing, despite his best efforts to keep the tribe afloat. He was a beast in challenges and really just got the short end of the stick with the casting situation. Somehow, through surviving all of those tribal councils, ends up painting himself as a big strategic threat just for existing. Also, by having to try really, really hard in challenges and carry his team on his back, he ended up having no choice but to come across as a huge competition threat, so really was doomed in the post-jury phase. Ended up having the shot in the dark hit, which it's really not good that all those people voted for him last week. So thanks to the shot in the dark, he really moves up 2 places on Wikipedia and makes it onto the jury. I fully expect Caleb to become a bigger figure in the overall picture here, where I could see him on Survivor again. I could definitely see him on the challenge before we see him on Survivor. He may have already gotten that call. I feel in my bones that we have a second chance season coming up. Like, I feel like season 50 is going to be a big season, and there needs to be a medium level season somewhere between now and then. Mark my words, on this day, Caleb will win something. We get a preview for the next episode, and next time on Survivor, they show a girls' alliance that's definitely not going to work because they're showing it in the preview. And then Jake looks for an idol and finds something, so he's definitely not going to find an idol because they're showing it in the preview, and they're always trying to trick us. And the Survivor auction is back. I believe that. If I had to make a prediction for what happens next week, I think that everybody splits the votes on Jake and Bruce, and Jake goes home. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of the episode? Who do you think will be voted off the island next week? I'll be back Wednesday night with a video. Until then, I'm covering the Big Brother finale week tomorrow. So that's what I'm doing, but I'll see you when I see you. Bye!